What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Joel Culpepper Outdoors. I'm Joel Culpepper. Today I want to go over some different fletchings for arrows, and I also want to go over what I would say is one of the most important but most overlooked pieces or components of your arrow build, that whether you're hunting or just target shooting. And we'll get to that a little bit later. But before we get to that, let's just run over some different vanes and fletchings I've used, what I like and dislike about them. So I actually have 6 different fletchings over here, all on arrows. So I have shot all of these. So I think this is the one we're going to start with. This is the Blazer vane. This is a very, very simple, very common vane. The reason that this is not one of my top picks is just because I didn't get to use these too much. I bought these when I was still shooting the Mission Switch, and I was going through arrows with that bow like crazy because I would just, 50, 60 yards, I would shoot high or shoot low or something, or I would pull hard left or right, and I lost a lot of arrows, so I didn't get to shoot these a whole lot. But what I can remember, they flew pretty good. But like I said, the reason I can't really rank these in like a top 2 or number 1 is I just didn't get to use them a whole lot. So, and actually this arrow right here is broken. I remember what happened is I shot my target at 40 yards with this arrow, and it kind of fell over and propped up the target like this, and I said, well, I'm just going to shoot another arrow, and I shot another one that hit it right there and just busted this arrow. So I kept it because that means that meant my consistency was real good that day. Left to right, probably up and down too, but I'm not 100% sure because the target fell over. Anyways, moving on. I reckon this is kind of going to be like a top 5, going from least favorite to most favorite. And this is going to be, this is actually a gold tip fletching. I can't remember exactly what they call it. But you can look it up on their website. This is just a 2-inch vane, very similar to a Blazer vane or the Bully vane by Boning. And it's just a fair vane. It does what it's supposed to do. Fairly durable. They are somewhat flexible, but not as flexible, I think, as the Blazers. They are a little bit thicker. But yet not as stiff as the Bully vanes are. So kind of a in-between for the Blazer and Bully vanes, just depending on what you're really looking for. If you just want to shoot gold tip for some reason, I wouldn't let the fletchings dissuade me from purchasing this arrow and shooting it. I've had good success with accuracy on these arrows. But if you watch my arrow video, you will know that this is the gold tip black label, and it was not one of my favorites. But the fletchings work pretty good, so can't really complain about the fletchings. Moving on, I reckon you would say this would be number 4. Just your basic Bully vane. So most of your arrows are going to come fletched. If they come with a factory fletch, it's probably going to be with these vanes right here. At least in my area, the Bully vanes are the most common for a pre-fletched arrow. And what can you really say about these? It's kind of just a standard fletching. It's not great. It's not terrible. It does its job. If you're only shooting out 50, 60 yards, I think that these are a pretty good option. But once we get past that, I don't really like these short 2-inch vanes personally. But that could be something that we experiment with a little bit later. But like I said, just kind of the standard fletching. Nothing great, nothing terrible about them. Moving on, so here we go into the top 3. This is a tack vein. I think this is a 2 1/4. Now, this arrow is fletched with a really strong helical. I did that just to kind of have some fun. It was really hard to do because I've got a cheap fletching jig, and it did not want to do the helical very well. I actually had to take, when I got the arrow off of the jig, and put glue in front of and behind the fletchings and hold it down to get it to do that. This is not an arrow that I would really hunt with. It was just something I wanted to do for fun. But these fletchings are actually the fletchings I used on my first. These are the fletchings I started fletching with. And I actually fletched the 3 of these arrows I bought, which is the Victory V-Force Elite in a 350 spine. This was the first arrow build, I suppose you would say, minus the hard helical. And everything else was the same. It was same veins, 3 fletch. Well, anyways, that was the first 100-yard shot that I ever took, was with these arrows and with these veins. So you're going to notice if you do start fletching, I don't recommend you do what I did and start with the tack veins, because they are so stiff. It's hard to get them seated just right on the jig. I've got better at it, but especially if you have a cheap jig like I do, it just doesn't work very well, and you're going to spend more time pulling veins off and refletching than you would if you had just bought a nice Bitzenberger, or even like one of those Arizona 3 fletch jigs, which is actually what I'm going to go to, because the cheap jig I've got now is terrible. But I mean, these work pretty good, so can't say too much about that. Coming up next is actually going to be my the arrow that I'm currently running, which is the Easton 6.0 with the TAC 2.75s on it. And these, I was actually taking shots yesterday at 100 yards with these arrows. So what I really like about these longer fletchings is how much they correct your flight. I was taking some closer shots a few weeks ago, and it was a very windy day, and I could see the wind blowing my arrow around. But even at 20 yards, these fletchings would correct. And some of the deviations I saw, or how much these arrows were kicking out left and right, or I reckon really they were kicking right because of the way the wind was blowing. But it was just so incredible to me how much these actually corrected the flight. My biggest problem with these veins, other than they're hard to fletch, is the rigidity of them. So when I'm out shooting my arrows, I'm not a great archer by any means, but I do stack. And sometimes, you have good days and bad days. So I have days where I'm just constantly stacking arrows on top of each other, and other days where I can't get 2 arrows to touch no matter how hard I try. But these arrows, especially ones that I haven't had to refletch since I bought them, these fletchings have just started to really tear and develop really weird, I guess you'd almost say, like ridges on them, because they're getting hit, and because they're so stiff, they just kind of almost cut the surface of the fletching, which also makes the arrow fly louder and make it slightly less accurate. I don't think you would notice that until you really got some weird stuff on here as far as accuracy, but that is something to keep in mind. Like I said, the rigidity of these make them hard to fletch, so I do not recommend this for someone that's just learning how to fletch, especially if you're using something like a Bitzenberger fletching jig. So moving on to the number 1, these are AAE Max Stealth veins. These are extremely popular. I'm sure everybody has seen these. I'm sure you recognize this arrow. This is a Gold Tip Hunter XT 340 spine. And this is a 4-fletch. My buddy did these for me. We actually bought these arrows at Bass Pro. And until I bought the Sonic 6.0s, and really the Victory V-Forces are good arrows too, but I don't know that these might not be a little bit better than the V-Forces. So I've said this honestly, and I honestly mean this. These Gold Tip Hunter XTs are very likely, if they are not the absolute best bang for your buck when it comes to arrows. If you just want to stick with a standard diameter shaft, you can't beat these for the price and for the performance that you get out of them. But we're talking about the vanes here. These are really, really good vanes, in my opinion. They fly really well for me. They're soft, but that doesn't mean that they're not tough, because again, I've stacked arrows on top of each other, and I've actually got one arrow with fletchings, with these fletchings, and one of them has got like some little holes in it because I've stacked on top of each other, but it flies just as good as this one does, which is very encouraging to me. Just, things happen when you're when you're in the woods. Branches, you can hit a branch that you didn't see, or a little piece of brush if you pull high or low. So anything like this that really helps correct your flight and really sticks good to the arrow, I'm a big fan of. I would say that these are good for learning how to fletch, just because they are softer. They're going to be easier to get seated on the arrow just right. And these are fletchings that you can use your entire archery career. They're just good fletchings. So that's just my opinion. Currently, I am still using tack vanes on my fletching, refletching, however you want to word it. But there is a possibility, when I get my new fletching jig, if I can't get it to seat just right with the tack vanes, there's a good possibility I'm either going to go back to the Max Stealths, or I'm going to try a different type of fletching altogether. Just depends. But I'm going to go back to what I was saying at the first part of the video. The underrated, one of the most, if not the most underrated component of your arrow build, archery equipment. So actually, this is a pretty good thing right here. I didn't want to have one with a broadhead over here, but a lot of people are going to be concerned about their broadhead that they're shooting for hunting. They're concerned about the insert, concerned about the arrow shaft, the weight. They're concerned about fletchings. Everything about the arrow, it seems people are concerned about, except their nock. And a lot of hunters are going to opt to use lighted nocks, which I'm 100% for. And I actually have some myself that I try to use during deer season. But if you're just shooting in the yard, not very many people are going to use those lighted nocks, because they are expensive and they are kind of fragile. If you do miss a shot or something, or you Robin Hood, it's a lot harder to swallow those, $10 lighted nocks than it is just one of these little cheap, 30, 40 cent nocks. So what I'm trying to get at is your nock is extremely important. Not necessarily for the performance of the bow, unless you're trying to, drop weight in the back to get more FOC, or increase weight in the back to decrease FOC, just depending on your situation. But your nock is extremely important, and I'll kind of use this as an example. So I posted a video a little while back about my first 3D shoot, and of course I'm running the Sonic 6.0s, and these have a bright orange nock. The other people that I was shooting with were running nocks similar to this in color. Dark gray, black, just depends on you know, how the light hits them and everything. You couldn't really see those once they hit the target. You might could see the fletchings, but of course they're using actual target vanes with target arrows. So the vanes are even shorter and shorter lengthwise and heightwise. So they're talking about vanes that come up maybe 3/4 of the way on height, and you know, maybe 1.75 inches, 2 inches long, and really short fletching. So you couldn't look at the fletchings until where their arrows hit, really, and you couldn't see the nocks. But anytime I would shoot, you could see my nock because it's fluorescent orange or bright orange, however you want to look at it. This is not a lighted nock. This is a standard, the standard nock that comes with the Sonic 6.0s. And one thing that I plan to do with my next batch of arrows, I've actually got ordered, and I'm gonna go pick them up next week, and I'm gonna do some reviews on those and everything. I'm gonna be running 2 different arrows, one 5mm, one standard diameter. Actually going back to the Gold Tip Hunter XT, so I may need to make an amendment to my arrow video and say that those are better than the Victories. But the other arrow I've never shot before because it is a 5mm. But we'll go over that when we get there. But one of the upgrades I do plan to do to both arrows is get these fluorescent orange nocks. Like I said, when I'm hunting, I'm going to use lighted nocks. But if for whatever reason in your state you can't use the lighted nocks, or you're just shooting in the yard, these bright orange nocks make it so much easier to see your arrow when it's in the target. It can help you with your narrow your groups down because it gives you something to aim at, depending on, you know, what you're doing. But when we get into these other color nocks like white, I mean, like it's a solid color, but it doesn't stand out. And most targets are going to have white on them, so it's really hard to see that. Same thing with this. This is just a solid yellow. There's nothing about that that's really easy to see. Dark gray, very difficult to see. And then these other 2 arrows I have here, this is a fluorescent orange nock. And then this is a fluorescent green nock. So I will have to play with these fluorescent greens some, but at the end of the day, I really think that this fluorescent orange is just going to be all around a better nock for visibility and such. For hunting, I wouldn't have any issues just shooting one of these at a deer because of this fluorescent orange nock. I'm going to be able to see that at least a lot easier than these other ones. Now, once I start getting more and more into this archery stuff and shoot multiple deer and maybe some other animals, whatever the case may be, then we'll be able to come back and kind of make a definitive statement on whether these are as good as lighted nocks or not, which I don't think they are. Don't get me wrong. If you get a chance to hunt with lighted nocks, I believe that you should take and use that, just because it advantages you as a hunter and it gives you the best chance possible of recovering that animal. Because if you do get a pass through, you can look at your arrow and see how much blood's on there, what type of blood it is, and that can be very beneficial to actually determining where you hit the deer, and beneficial in tracking the deer. So that's going to wrap up this video. I hope I didn't take too much of your time today, and I hope this was informative and enjoyable for all of you watching. Go ahead and leave me a comment. Let me know what you would like to see later down the road. The only reason that I'm making archery videos is that seems to be what I get the most views on. It seems to be what you guys like the most. So I'm going to keep making the videos that get the views. If you want to see something different, just let me know in the comments. I still like to go fishing, bass fishing and flats fishing now. I'm not going to do a whole lot with rifles or shotguns, firearms of any kind, just because this is YouTube. And once I started bow hunting, I kind of just forgot all that other stuff, or just kind of left it behind. It's not, I don't enjoy it as much as I enjoy bow hunting. But let me know what you guys want to see in the comments. Thank you to all of you that have been subscribing and watching these videos. I have been keeping an eye on the statistics and everything. I think it's like 88% of my viewers are not subscribers. So I'm not going to tell you to subscribe, but if you like the content here and you want to continue to see this content, do consider subscribing. It helps me. It helps the channel. Helps us to grow, and I do want to have a bigger audience. So just keep watching these videos, if nothing else. Like I said, if you want to see something, leave me a comment. I try to respond to all of my comments because I don't get that many. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and cut it off right there. Anyways, everybody, y'all stay safe, stay in the outdoors. God bless you, and I'll catch you on the next one.